Hey everybody, welcome to the America's Only Path Forward podcast. I'm your host, Lincoln Swordsmith, and I'm incapable of recognizing social boundaries and certain facial expressions, unfortunately. In today's episode, we're going to talk about democracy and why it's so important in America. Reader Django Crazy writes, Democrats always howling about democracy, but democracy isn't always fair. Why can't they understand that sometimes the majority gets it wrong? Well, first of all, I'd like to know if your name is John and you go crazy, or if your name is Django and you is crazy. But let's see. I think it's basically because the majority doesn't get things wrong by definition. I'll explain, obviously. Conservatives like to say that democracy is two wolves and a sheep deciding what to have for dinner, but that's mouth garbage. People are not wolves and sheep, they are carpenters, doctors, computer programmers, farmers, and hair stylists. Humans do not want to devour one another or prey on one another in general. Those people that do want to prey on others are known as criminals, and we lock them up. Everyone else is supposed to be striving to get along in our society, not screwing each other relentlessly. Outside of the bedroom, of course. People that live in cities, for example, need farmers to provide produce and farmers need city dwellers to buy their produce. This is known as a symbiotic or cooperative relationship, which wolves and sheep are not capable of. The sheep can't offer a bit of meat to the wolf in exchange for some protection or something, so the comparison to humans is a little bit massively ridiculous. When humans originally organized as civilizations thousands of years ago, we decided to cooperate as a species in order to make things easier and more efficient. For example, instead of everyone fending for themselves and tending their own farms, humans created specialization and the division of labor. A perfect example of this is where a school teacher teaches everyone's children, so that parents can go on to their own jobs at the bakery, the car manufacturing plant, customer service jobs, owning a business, being a dentist, and so forth. Each person specializing in their job and dividing tasks in this way means we can do more as a group. This creates efficiency and moves society forward much faster, which Americans take for granted, of course. But within that structure is a certain morality that often gets ignored. In other words, why should the school teacher teach everyone's children, but then hardly be able to put food on their own table while the executive at the car company makes millions of dollars per year? The executive wouldn't be able to have a good specialized job and make gobs of cash if someone wasn't growing their food, teaching their kids, manufacturing their products, locking up criminals, and so forth. Therefore, we owe it to each other morally in our specialized economy to make sure that everyone can afford a bare minimum standard of living. Notice that I didn't say that everyone should get the same paycheck or anything like that. I'm just saying that since everyone does their part, we owe each other a decent standard of living as a baseline in American society. This morality comes from the fact that humanity is a team sport and we can't do it without each other. It's an unwritten agreement we've all made with one another to be fair and work as a team. That's why democracy, as imperfect as it is not wolves and sheep, it's the gold standard of human decision-making. We've all known this since we were kids. If you take a vote in your family for where to go to dinner, for example, we all know that the majority vote wins because it satisfies the greatest number of people. In the case of dinner, that doesn't matter much. But in our society, satisfying the greatest number of people means freedom and justice for the greatest number of Americans, and that's crazy important. Plus, if the majority in our society doesn't get their way on a certain issue, then it means the minority does. How does that make any sense? Would you have an election for a mayor in your town and swear in the candidate that gets the fewest votes? Would you have a jury trial and let one or two jurors decide the case? Das ist bonkers, man. Democracy, also known as majority rules voting, is morally superior because it satisfies more of the group, but it's also safer. See, you can convince one person or a small minority of almost anything, but convincing the majority that your candidate, conclusion, or idea is the best one is far more difficult. That means it's safer. Of course, it's not impossible to convince the majority that something evil will be good for everyone, but it's far more difficult, and that means safety. Think about it. We left England because we didn't want to live under the rule of a king. That's because a king is basically a one-person minority, and minority rule is immoral. Our forefathers realized that any kind of minority rule is tyranny and immoral, so they wanted to be able to make their own rules. But making your own rules means the majority agreeing. If we allow the minority of citizens to have their way, it's only marginally better than a king. If you disagree with that, think about how morality is enforced in the first place. The vast majority of people believe that it's wrong to steal things, for example, so we create laws against stealing and put people in jail when they break our laws. Morality comes from the fact that the majority believes something is right or wrong, and then we make laws to aim toward those standards. The majority thinks it's wrong to put a hidden camera in a bathroom, so we make laws that say so and throw criminals in the slammer when they film toilet. If the majority thought that stealing things and placing hidden cameras were cool, then we wouldn't have laws against them. I know it sounds crazy at first, but that's the truth about humanity. Morality comes from what the majority believes about what is right and wrong. Therefore, democracy is also morally sound for the same reason. In other words, you can't say that we get our morality about pretty much everything. Mechanics ripping off people that don't know about cars, for example, from the moral majority, and then turn around and say that the majority is dangerous to the minority. Humans do tend to have a mob mentality in some cases, but the wolves and sheep comparison is basically an assumption that whenever a majority has power over a minority, they will use their power nefariously to harm the minority. That's like saying that if you see 10 of your neighbors talking in a group on your block, they must be plotting against you because they are the majority and you are in the minority at that moment. This is also known as paranoia. Humans do not automatically use a majority to hurt a minority. Again, we created civilizations in order to cooperate with each other. The group of people in America that is currently 25 to 64 years old is almost 5 times as large as the group that is 65 and older. We could use our younger majority to say that this relatively small group of seniors is wasting our resources and doesn't contribute like they used to, so let's get rid of them or throw them in prisons and take their homes and property, but obviously we don't because it would be wrong. Humans generally look out for one another and agree that everyone in society has some value to the rest of us as long as they aren't hardened criminals that are grievously wronging others. Grannies and other small groups are not simply tossed out of society for being different or in a minority, because humanity is undeniably a team effort. Now I'd like to ask my readers a question. If you disagree with democracy or think that it's somehow dangerous to give the majority power over the minority on any issue, then who would you give the power to if not the majority? The minority? A king or dictator? A book or document? Let me know in the comments below. Please like and subscribe and purchase America's Only Path Forward on Amazon today. Thank you for watching.